Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Today I am back with another top 12 recommendation video. I've been absolutely loving making these for you guys. And if you've never seen one of these, I will link a playlist up above and down below so you can watch all the other videos that I've made in this series. And in this series, what I do is I recommend my top 12 recommendations in a subgenre or subcategory of horror and thriller books. I love figuring out my niche taste of reading, especially in the horror and thriller genres, because those are my favorite to read. So if you're interested in things like my top 12 slashers, my top 12 most disturbing books, things like that, where we're just niching down the recommendations, definitely check out all of the videos in this series. But today we're going to be going over my top 12 psychological thriller and horror recommendations. Now, if you're not sure what that category means, what does a psychological thriller make? It's basically something that messes with the reader. So messes with our minds, our psychology, and it's kind of digging into the psychological horror of it all. Not necessarily the situation on its face is horrifying, but there's also an added element of the kind of mind twisting and gaslighting that is done to the reader by the structure of the story. So I have a mix of horror and thrillers, but there are mostly thrillers on this list, and the horror that's on here isn't too scary, I would say. It's mostly just weird psychological horror that I love, that I think definitely belongs on a list of my favorite psychological horror and thriller books. But before we get into the recommendations, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Atlas Coffee Club. Y'all know I absolutely love working with them. So let's go to the kitchen, pour myself a little cold brew so I am fueled and ready to give you these recs, and I will tell you a little bit more about them. If you haven't heard me talk about Atlas before, they are a coffee subscription that curates the world's best coffee and brings it right to your door. They source from over 50 plus countries around the world, and their mission is to connect you with the world's best, from Papua New Guinea to Peru, Burundi, and Brazil. Each month, Atlas highlights and delivers coffee and culture from a new country, and now coffee lovers can unlock a whole world, making discoveries that you couldn't have otherwise or elsewhere. So here I am making my cold brew. This is the Brazil blend that they sent over. They always send along with the coffee some tasting notes and facts about where the coffee actually came from, as well as a cute little postcard. They also sent over a coffee from Rwanda in that cute little bag, and then one from Ecuador as well. Again, they all come with the information, and then here is the little card that shows you how to make the cold brew. You can truly taste the difference with Atlas compared to other coffees that are a blend. These are just pure beans. Pure coffee beans. It's not a blend of a bunch of stuff that you don't know where it came from. Also, because you know exactly where it's coming from, it's a really cool experience to do a world tour and taste coffee from all around the world. As I mentioned in the voiceover, I get my grounds from Atlas for making cold brew, and they send little instructions on how you can do that, but you can also get a variety of different forms of the beans so you can make it the way that you like it, whether that's French press or in a coffee machine or whatever. And they really prioritize freshness. Every single coffee is roasted to order, and it's completely tailored to the customer, to you, based on what you like. I get a medium roast, and again, the ground's made for cold brew, but you can get any kind of style with a darker to light roast, and you can get your coffee delivered on a flexible schedule, whatever you prefer. You can cancel, pause, skip, whatever it may be at any time whenever you need it. They are so flexible and accommodating. And if you're concerned about sustainability, since Atlas does have all of these different sources where they get their coffee all over the world, you'll be happy to know that Atlas pays fair trade prices for every single one of the beans that they source, and they make sure that the people at the source in whatever country they're getting it from are paid adequately. Ethics and sustainability is really important to them to actually appreciate where they're getting the product from, which I love. And of course, the best part about Atlas Coffee is that they are super affordable. They have very competitive prices for the kind of subscription-based coffee game. And it's just really important for them that everyone enjoys their quality coffee. So if you're hearing all this and you're interested to give Atlas a try, go ahead and visit my link down below, atlascoffeeclub.com/hailey, and get 50% off your first bag of Atlas coffee. This is such a great deal, and I hope you guys go check them out and enjoy it as much as I do. Thank you so much to Atlas Coffee Club for sponsoring another video of mine. Definitely make sure you go check them out and use my code for a discount. Now let's go ahead and get into the recommendations. The first book that I want to talk about is actually my new favorite book of maybe all time. Okay, I know this is very high praise and y'all haven't heard me talk about this at all unless you follow me on Instagram and you follow my reading updates through my Instagram stories, but y'all, this book, to me, there's simply nothing better. And that is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I'm calling it now. This is my best book of the year. 2023 is going to be defined by this book for me. I am obsessed with it. This is a psychological horror book, but it reads more like a family drama thriller. So if you like that, then you will definitely like this. It just has that added weird psychological element to it. And in this book, we are following our main character whose parents sadly passed away. So she has to fly home and go deal with their house and their will and like all of the things that they left behind that you don't really think about when you're like in the midst of losing a parent. There's like all of these practical things to get done, logistical things to tackle, and that on its own is a whole level of psychological horror. But she's going home and she's actually meeting up with her brother, who they've kind of had a estranged relationship over the past few years. So they have to come together and sort through the ghosts of their past. And they believe that the house that they're trying to sell, their parents' old house, is haunted. We, the reader, are just not sure if it is actually haunted or if it is haunted by the trauma that is being trapped in the house through generational issues, family dynamics, all of that. So definitely a strong psychological element there, not only with the psychological content, which I really appreciate as a therapist, but also because the reader is constantly kept guessing on what is the reason for the creepy things happening in the house. The character development in here is phenomenal. The way that this story unfolds, you just care so much about the people that you're following. These people feel like real people, but they have those little like hyperbolized quirks about them that I think Grady Hendrix does so well. There's also a lot of horror in here about dolls and puppets coming to life. Like, I don't know, it just kind of gave me like poltergeist vibes, but you know me, I am not someone who loves a paranormal thriller, and even though I have a bias against paranormal content, this is one that I just love so much. I know I'm going to be talking about it all year long. You are going to get so sick of hearing about this book, but this is my #1 rec. Next up, since we did a recent, I'll throw it back to an oldie but a goodie next, and that is An Anonymous Girl by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. This is a thriller about a psychologist who is running a study, and we're following her and then one of the participants in the study. And the participant is increasingly worried about Dr. Shields, I believe. Yes, Dr. Shields, who is the psychologist. She's like, can this girl read my mind? Does she know me? Is she trying to kill me? What is the motive here? And we're also following this like cold clinical psychologist who's running the study, and we're getting to know her motives from behind the scenes. This thriller constantly kept me guessing. It was so juicy and twisty. I know a lot of people don't really love this one, but this is one that I feel super underrated. I gave it 5 stars. I had so much fun with it, and I loved the psychological element. Maybe it was just because I like reading about psychological studies because I am a therapist and I keep up with the research. So this just felt like very close to home for me. But I think the twists were so fun. It's not like super, super deep, but I cannot remember another thriller like this, like these little poppy kind of airport thrillers that I enjoyed so much. That wasn't just like a basic domestic thriller. This plot has a little bit more to it. Again, the reader is constantly kept guessing. There are two unreliable narrators. It is so much fun. Next up, I want to talk about The Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry. This is a thriller about a creepy little kid, this beautiful, wonderful couple who has been together forever. They've just been trying so hard to have a baby and it's not happening for them. Well, they end up adopting this sweet little sad girl in the hospital where the husband works. He's a doctor and he just makes this connection with the patient and it's literally so cute. But things start going down the drain when they take her home. Because this little child is literally the devil, or is she? The whole entire story, we are kept guessing. Is there actually something wrong with this girl? Is she just a little devil child? Or is the mom crazy? Because we're reading from the mom's perspective. Is she just like really not having it, really not connecting with this kid and it's on her head? She's going crazy. Is she targeting this poor little child who just has trauma and she's acting out? We have no idea what to believe. We also get the perspective of a social worker throughout the book, just like further implicates the like psychological things that you're wondering, is it that, or is she just a crazy little devil possessed child? And this book is dark. First of all, it is twisty. It will catch you off guard. But second of all, those twists have a level of darkness that I was not expecting. This is the first Lucinda Berry book that I read, and it was what got me hooked on her writing style. She is a therapist as well, or like she had that career in the past. So she has the psychological knowledge to write it really, really well. And she constantly keeps you guessing. That is the biggest thing about this book for me, is I was never sure what was going on. And when the ending hit, there are two twists back to back at the end that I was like, oh, it's crazy. If you like something that's going to mess with your head and be super twisty, this is the one. Next up, we have another paranormal book, which I know you would not expect from me, but I love Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. Y'all know I will eat up anything Riley serves me, anything. He could literally give me a cold, dead piece of roadkill and I would just, no. Like, I love Riley Sager's writing so much. And I think this is his best work in the like psychological subgenre. Some people call this horror, some people call this thriller. It does kind of read like Haunting of Hill House vibes, because we are following a girl who, again, her dad passed away and she inherits this haunted house from him. They are like this sensationalized story in the media where this family, her family, lived in this house for 5 days before running for the hills because it was so haunted. Now, she grew up thinking, oh, that's just bullshit. Like, my dad just spun this tale for fame and there's nothing actually wrong with the house. But then she goes back to it and creepy things start happening and we are left wondering as the reader, is this something paranormal or is this something else, something that can be easily explained? Is there someone stalking her? We have no idea what's going on, but I was scared reading this book. I think this was a really effective style of writing that took like the feeling of watching a paranormal horror movie and put it into a book. And usually I do not like paranormal book content because it doesn't feel like that, like, oh my God, I can see it out of the corner of my eye, like moving on the side of the screen, like you get when you watch something like Paranormal Activity, The Conjuring, Insidious, and this book felt like watching one of those movies. It was constantly messing with my mind, and the reveal at the end was insane. I did not see any part of that twist coming. This was an automatic 5-star. As soon as I read that ending, I had to go back and reread it to make sure that I knew what was happening, and then I was like, oh, yeah, no, I would have never guessed that in 1,000,000 years. It was so good, kept me on my toes. The atmosphere was perfect, creepy, gothic, haunted house vibes. So good. Next, let's talk about The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. I have a copy of this book, but it's actually lent out to my friend right now. He wanted to read it after we watched the movie. The movie Knock at the Cabin, oh my God, so good. My favorite movie of the year so far. You have to go watch it. It is phenomenal. The book I didn't like as much as the movie. I think this is a rare case where I do like the movie better. But regardless, the book is some of the most effective psychological horror that I've read because we have no idea what to believe, who to believe. This book literally gaslit me as I was reading it, and you have no idea the entire time what is actually happening outside of the four walls of this little cabin. So basically, if you don't know what this is about, a gay couple and their little cute daughter that they adopted from overseas are just like living their little lives. They are going on a vacation, staying in this cabin, like Airbnb, and they're just having this pure little family vacation. Everyone's so in love. It's like sunshine is out. And then four strangers knock at their door and tell them that they have to make a sacrifice to prevent the apocalypse, the end of the world. And of course, this couple is immediately like, right, we're gonna prevent the apocalypse, LOL, get out of here, goodbye, leave us alone. But then things escalate and doubt starts to creep in, and we watch these two guys, and we as ourselves, the reader, experience that questioning of like, is the apocalypse really going to happen? As things wait longer and longer and longer before they make the sacrifice, is the world actually crumbling apart outside? We don't know. But if it is, what the hell are they gonna do? It's like this impossible moral conundrum, that kind of like psychological equation of like the trolley problem. It is that, but in a book, and we have no idea if it's actually happening or not. I loved the characters in this book so much. The only thing that held me back from giving this book a 5-star rating was the ending. I did not like the ending, but good news that in the adaptation, I loved the ending. It was like the perfect way that it could have ended, that I wanted the book to end. That's what they did in the movie. So maybe this is one where you're gonna watch the movie, but the writing is phenomenal as well, so I recommend both. Next, let's talk about an underrated fave. Here we have The Replacement Wife by Darby Kane, and this is a straightforward domestic thriller, but there is just this little extra thing about it that made me love it so much, and that is the psychological element. We are following our main character who is happily married, but her husband has a brother. So this brother-in-law, he's been going through partners, and he doesn't just like lose the partner, like, oh, they break up and then they just like lose touch. No, he's had like a girlfriend, a fiance, and a wife either go missing or turn up dead. And our main character is like, something fishy's going on. She thinks he has got to be a murderer. She is just convinced. So throughout the book, we're trying to figure out what has happened to these women, and is our main character correct that he has something going on with him, or is she crazy? And the whole time this book is gaslighting you, trying to make you think that one thing is happening when really the other is happening. And it's just like, oh, like I felt like it was kind of a fever dream reading this book. I had no idea who to believe. It was so much fun. This kind of reminded me, honestly, of an Anonymous Girl, even with like the cover, like it's very eerily similar, and they're both really just a lot of fun. If you like psychological thrillers, this one's going to be great for you. And again, this one is so underrated. I never hear anyone talking about it. It deserves a lot more praise. Next up, we have Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney, and this is one of the best and my most favorite unreliable narrators I have ever read from. We're following this girl, and she's in a coma, and we know that she was in this like toxic relationship. She says that he doesn't love her anymore. That's what she knows. But then she follows that up with Sometimes I Lie. So we have no idea what she's lying about. And we are from the perspective of this girl who's in a coma. So she could like hear what's going on around her. She's getting the tea from the people in her hospital room who don't know that she's like cognizant behind her like coma eyes. But we're also getting these flashbacks of their relationship and other things that happened to try to put together the pieces of how she ended up in this unfortunate situation in a coma in the hospital. And obviously the like big dilemma is, did her husband do something to her, or is she faking this? Is she a crazy person, or is it some other third variable? This twist caught me so off guard. I feel like this one is just such a classic, like, and it is for a reason. This is one of those thrillers that like defined the unreliable narrator trope in the genre. This is truly the standard. Easy 5-star book, and my mom predicts like every thriller she has ever read, like everything. Pretty Girls, Jar of Hearts. She's predicted everything, but this one got her. She stands by that. So if you feel like you can predict every twist, please read this one. I promise you, you will not. And it will be that psychological trip of gaslighting that you are looking for in a psychological thriller. Next, let's talk about the book that everyone probably knew was going to be on this list. This is probably on every psychological thriller list. And that is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I absolutely love this book. It was so fast paced. I stayed up till 4 in the morning because I needed to know what was happening. And again, this book just messed with my mind so much. We're following this renowned psychologist who wants to go to this hospital and break this case of this woman who everyone says she will not talk. Like, she is the silent patient. That is her. She stabbed a man like 1,000,000 times in the face, killed him, and she will never talk about it, won't ever get a motive out of her. No. Well, he's like this cocky guy, and he's like, well, I'm gonna go get her motive. I'm gonna get her to talk, and we're trying to figure out what has happened with her, why she killed a man, and also why our main character has this like fixation on her case. It kept me guessing the whole time. I did not see that reveal coming. I know a lot of people said they have, but I fall on the side of, I just really love The Silent Patient. I feel like this is one you love or you hate, and a lot of people are not gonna like seeing it on my list, but I can't help it. It was an easy 5-star for me. It was so much fun. I could not guess it. Literally, I fell victim to the hype, to the like silent patient effect. And if you're not susceptible to that effect, I'm so happy for you, but I was, and I stand by that. Getting into a little bit more horror, I would recommend Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca. I absolutely love this little novella. It is such a quick read, but it is haunting. It is told in these series of like letter post to like some like message board thing, like Craigslist vibes, and emails and instant messages as this toxic relationship emerges between a girl who's trying to sell an apple peeler and a woman who is trying to buy the apple peeler on the internet, and how she worms her way inside our main character's mind and slowly starts to unravel her psyche and manipulate her. And as the reader, we are being manipulated as well. I had so much fun reading this. The storytelling is really effective, like the way that it's written in the little pieces of media. And I know this book is kind of hard to find right now with this cover, so I'm one of the fortunate few who has it. But there is another collection of short stories where this book is in there, and I love Eric LaRocca's work. Y'all know that. So if you like weird, queer, psychological horror like me, this is automatic 5-star for you, girl. I know it. On kind of the same track as that like toxic relationship trope, I have I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. This is one of my favorite books, one of my all-time faves. Like, I will continually recommend this forever. I remember when I read it for the first time, it like reset my brain. It was a cultural reset for me. This writing style was kind of the first like weird fever dream kind of writing that I've read, and it set me on a collision course. Okay, me and this weird horror just went boom. I figured out that this is some of my favorite writing ever. And this is not the only Ian Reid book on the list, so just stay tuned for more of this. But I'm Thinking of Ending Things that follows this couple, and our main character is like, I'm thinking of ending things with this man. I don't know if I'm gonna stick it out. As they're on the way to meet the guy's parents for the first time, and she gets there and is just creepy, and the parents are weird, and this trip devolves into madness where we're trying to figure out, is this girl crazy? Is there something wrong with her? Or is this relationship just like toxic? And it goes into this bigger metaphor and messes with the reader. The audiobook is phenomenal. Like, I have a whole 25-minute video that I posted maybe like 3 years ago. It was so long ago, but I talked about this book for like a half an hour. Do not like the movie adaptation, but this book it will go down in history as one of my favorites. It has a lot of commentary on mental health. There are metaphors for really dark, triggering things in this book, so do be aware of that before going in. It is pretty dark, but I think it handles mental health in a way where it's not used as a twist. It's all commentary. It's all like something to say. And I really appreciated it. The metaphor simply resonated with me so deeply that I cannot get this book out of my mind, and I don't want to. Next up, let's talk about The Patient by Jasper DeWitt. This is another little horror novella that's also told in like message board postings. It's like recounts of kind of like something that was posted on Reddit. So it's kind of trying to make you think like, oh, this was a real event. These are the archives of the Reddit post, blah, 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 blah. Obviously it's fiction, but I do like that kind of element. And we're basically hearing from this guy who worked at a mental hospital where there's this patient that no one could figure out. And I think that's all you need to know. I really suggest going in blind and just letting this book take you on a ride, because you will never know at any point where this is going. As a mental health professional myself, it was horrifying to think about being in this situation with a patient like this, risking my life to work with them. Oh my God, it was haunting. And the ending, literally so scary. The way that this book worms its way inside your mind, there's nothing like it. And it is really good. I've heard psychological horror lovers like stand by this book very, very strongly. So I feel like if you want to take one psychological horror rec from this video, this is the quintessential one. And to round out my top 12, I have that other Ian Reid book that I referenced earlier, and that is We Spread. And I just recently read this one with my Patreon book club. If you want to join my Patreon and read with us this month or next, it's always linked down below. But this one was such a hit for us. I loved it so much. I was tearing up as I was reading it. It is so much more than just a psychological horror book, because it is about having the experience of Alzheimer's dementia. The way that this book is written causes the reader to feel like you're losing track of time as you're reading it. It's such a weird pacing that just works so well. Like you literally lose time and feel like you're in a fever dream, like you're experiencing dementia as you're reading. We are following our main character named Penny, who is this old woman, and her cognitive deterioration is starting, and she's transitioning from like just a normal apartment to an assisted living facility where there are a bunch of other people there who are like quirky old people characters who are also having memory problems, and we are left guessing, is there something creepy and nefarious happening at this memory care facility? Or is this just all in her head? Is she just paranoid because she has dementia? And we're going back and forth and back and forth. I love these characters so much. The way that Ian Reid writes characters, I feel like is very similar to Grady Hendrix, where there's just like this little extra quirkiness, this little hyperbolic nature to them, but they also feel like they could maybe in a slightly alternate universe be real people. I think it's because of the empathy and understanding that's created in this book, which I think is just so essential, especially with a psychological horror or thriller book. You have to care to invest your own mind in the story, and this book definitely does that. I could rave about this book all day long. Between the plot, the metaphors and what it has to say, the commentary of it all, the actual horror, the paranoia, the pacing, the writing style, it is all so good. This is a masterclass in psychological horror, and I am like Ian Reid's new biggest fan, especially after this one. Between this and I'm Thinking of Ending Things, I am obsessed. So those are my top 12 psychological book recommendations. I hope you guys enjoyed and got a couple recs from this video. If you did and you liked it, go ahead and give me a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to go down below and check out Atlas Coffee Club as well. It is genuinely so good. I drink it every morning and I have been for months. And don't forget to go to therapy and read a book this week. I will see you guys in my next video.